I am Anna Seawold, and this is Authentic Parenting, a podcast about growing ourselves while raising our children. I'm a psychologist, educator, and parent coach. My mission is to end violence against children. Through my work and this podcast, I help parents break generational cycles of trauma, reconnect with their authentic selves, and raise emotionally healthy children. Together, we've built a global community of conscious parents who want something different for the next generation. Join us as we create a more peaceful, kind, and compassionate world. Today, overcoming school avoidance. What to do when your kid simply won't go to school. As the school year gets ready to begin, I want to talk about an issue that affects many families, but is still not talked about nearly enough. School refusal. Here in New Jersey, where I am, the school year hasn't started yet, but I know that in some parts of the country, children are already back in school. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to release this episode now, to give you the information and understanding you need before a problem develops or before an existing struggle becomes overwhelming. Imagine waking up every morning knowing that getting your child out the door for school is going to be a struggle. There may be tears, anxiety, stomach aches, headaches, panic, resistance, or complete refusal to go. You may have no idea what is happening or what you're supposed to do. Many parents don't even realize that what they are experiencing has a name, and schools may not recognize it either, or may misunderstand what is behind a child's behavior. When school refusal goes unrecognized or misunderstood, families can end up feeling confused, overwhelmed, and powerless. You may be asking yourself, what is happening to my child? What's wrong with my child? Am I making this worse? Should I insist that they go to school? Should I let them stay home? And what are we supposed to do? Understanding the problem is the first step. In this episode, we're going to unpack school refusal, what it is, how common it is, what causes it, how it can show up in children, and how to recognize when it has become a problem. We'll also talk about the difference between school refusal and truancy, which is really important to understand. My guest, Jayne Demsky, is the founder of the School Avoidance Alliance and the author of Overcoming School Avoidance, What to Do When Your Kid Won't Go to School, and she is extremely knowledgeable in this area. Plus, she also has some personal experience. We'll look at the different ways school refusal can manifest, the age group it tends to affect, and what parents and schools need to know. And most importantly, we'll talk about how school refusal can be addressed and what can actually help. My hope is that by the end of this conversation, you will have a much clearer understanding of what may be happening with your child and feel more prepared and empowered to support your child, advocate for them, and make decisions that are right for your family. Because if you are dealing with school refusal, you're not alone, and you don't have to navigate it feeling defeated or powerless. There is help. So I invite you to listen to this conversation all the way to the end. It is packed with information, practical guidance, and things I think every parent or educator should know about this issue. And as always, if you're dealing with this in your own family and need additional support, resources, or guidance, do not hesitate to get in touch with me. I always love hearing from you. With that, please enjoy my conversation with Jayne Demsky. And so, as an expert, I was invited to work with this therapeutic school recently.
Oh, great.
So, I went to this school, and the reason they wanted to work with me and do trainings for their parents and staff was school refusal is the number one issue. I'm sitting there listening and I'm like, holy cow. What is this moment, this awakening, this realization? And I had known about you because I'd spoken with, Jen about all of this. And I said, Jen, you have to connect me with this woman. Like, I desperately need to talk to her. And so it was the first time that I connected the dots and put the name. And I was surprised that schools don't even use that term, honestly. So take it from here. Why are people so oblivious? Because parents, how would a parent know what's going on, right? Because when you have a name for something, it becomes concrete and then you can take action. Just like in diagnosis, when people have a diagnosis. Until then, you're just swimming in your own problem and you don't know that's even a problem. So whose responsibility is it, right? If not the schools, because they're educated, they go through professional trainings, like what's going on? Jayne, please inform me.
Want me to talk about the overall problem?
Let's talk about the overall problem, right? Like what is school refusal?
School refusal, we call it school avoidance. We chose to do that intentionally a few years ago just because the refusal has such a bad negative connotation. So we use school avoidance. I didn't coin the term, but we use that.
May I just pause for a moment? Yes, I was a little confused about that because I encounter both. And it sounds like school refusal, it's a negative, and school avoidance, it's the first one is like the problem is in the child. The second one is not so pathologizing. School avoidance is not pathologizing, right?
Exactly. Yes. That's why when I first started talking to schools, I said instead of they talk about people who have substance abuse. So they call them addicts, or I forgot the other terminology. And I said, well, how about substance use disorder? Now, there are studies that show that the people who are treated for substance use disorder, as opposed to addicts or whatever that negative terminology was, that the treatment is different. So that is true. But school avoidance, school refusal are the same things. The term school phobia is an antiquated term. And if someone's using it, they have no idea what's going on. They shouldn't be talking about it. School refusal is when a child has a paralyzing, uncontrollable fear of something related to school. And how it looks is that it looks different ways for different families, but a very common one is when it first starts happening is parent will go into the child's bedroom and they'll say, like, why aren't you getting ready? And the child is just hiding under their covers. They might not say anything. And then the parent starts yelling and says, get the heck out of bed. You got to get to school. And the student, the kids starts crying and it becomes like a battle. Now, the student, the youth is just desperately scared and avoiding this is avoidant behavior. And until parents know that it has a name and what it is, there's no way they're able to treat it any differently than confrontational. And you got to get to school. And the school puts the pressure on the parent. So that becomes a cycle. But the overall problem with school avoidance is that it's not in our general awareness. So no one is talking about it enough to get it in the media. And I've been very frustrated over the years, and it really hasn't changed because after COVID, we were starting to talk about chronic absenteeism. The numbers we were shown average schools averaging 28%, 30% of absenteeism. But through the years, no one's ever spoken about school avoidance. And when I started to read over the years as well, guidance from states, Department of Education, they would talk about chronic absenteeism and never mention school avoidance. So It's because the educators aren't being educated on it because they don't know it exists. And for the schools to bring us in and look for solutions to help them, there's got to be someone on their team who's found out about school avoidance, and then is just like, wow, we need help. And they have to be strong enough to be able to sell to the administration if the administrators are not the people who first find out about it.
God forbid they bring that in and change some of their policies or other things, right? So schools are known to be very rigid, in my opinion, but that's a whole nother conversation. So did this worsen after COVID, this problem?
So for a lot of kids, it did, because there have always been kids with anxiety disorders, but learning differences or anything else, or school related factors that made them feel negative about school. So when they were home, they were like, oh my God, this feeling of relief. They might have been going to school and pushing themselves to the max, but been miserable. And then when they felt like what it's like to be at home and to be able to do whatever I want, or to be with their family and friends, when we opened up a little bit, they felt this relief. So then to returning to that system of having to do something every day that was uncomfortable in some way became a real issue. And also, school avoidance has been going on for years. The first researchers documented it from 1932. And my son started having school avoidance. This is a decade ago now. His first signs of school avoidance were probably like in 2007, 2008. And he got back to high school in 2015, or he graduated, I don't know, remember what. It's been so long. But so then, even then, there was research showed that 1 to 5% of the population worldwide had school avoidance. But no one ever heard of it. I was the only one. And when I do presentations for schools, I say to them, my son had symptoms of school avoidance for 3 years, and we saw 7 to 9 mental health professionals along the way, and no one mentioned the word school refusal until finally this one doctor. And I give him credit all the time. I would say his name, but he probably doesn't want more cases calling him because he can't handle the caseload. But once he told me that name, it was like, oh, we're not crazy. We are seeing something that has a name. That changed everything, because up until then, we couldn't figure out what was going on and no one had the answer. So I am grateful to that doctor every day of my life, because if it weren't for him, I don't know what path we would have went on.
And how old was he when it started, the problem manifest itself?
So I started seeing signs of a problem when he was in first grade, and they had to do reading logs. Now, my son and many kids who have school avoidance as well are really super intelligent kids. Just a lot of kids are. And my son loved reading, but they had this thing that I really despise called reading marathon. And what it was, every night the kid had to read some part of their book, and they had to write 2 or 3 sentences to hand in as homework every day about what they learned or what they read. And my son started having what looked like now panic attacks, but I didn't know what was happening, and he couldn't do it. And he would start running around the room saying, I know what I have to do. I know what I have to do, but I can't. I can't. And sometimes he would like start crying and have fits. And I would call the teacher and be like, my son, he can't do the reading log. And they would say, oh, just try, or I'll speak to him. And that never went anywhere. No one ever figured out that was a real issue. Eventually it resolved when he didn't have to do reading logs. But it reappeared again, the school avoidance, I'd say intermediate school, which where we are is fourth and fifth grade. And just like 2 or 3 times in that school year, he didn't want to get out of the car, drop off. and I had to call someone to help me. I had no idea what was going on. He did say at one point during that year, I remember that he didn't enjoy getting older, or he wished he didn't have to get older. And I don't know if that was saying that, his friends were starting to veer off in a different way than he was, or the schoolwork was getting harder. But that definitely, those were the signs. And then it didn't go into full blown problematic. Oh, the next sign was homework. In sixth and seventh grade, he started to have this issue. He couldn't do lots of his homework. Again, and homework was never an issue. And I was emailing every class, for a long time trying to figure out how to help him with his homework. And then eventually it came into starting to not want to go to school, and it came into school refusal, full-blown school refusal. The thing that schools really should, most schools have something called the student information system, and some schools even go farther where they have attendance software that will keep track of the data of kids coming in or when they're late or academic issues to show signs that maybe something's going on. But I tell schools all the time, if you have that student information system, also include the number of phone calls you're getting from a parent, the number of emails that are coming in to each teacher, especially when they go to multiple teachers. Those are flags. Those are early signs that I've never seen anyone put in their student information system to this day. So that's something I always preach when I go into school. I don't know if they've ever done it, but that is a huge problem as well.
I see. So when does it become a problem? And because I believe like all children refuse school at some point, right? And I rarely meet people who say, I loved my school experience. It seems like even like my generation, we didn't like it, but we went. We tolerated it. But it seems like something is happening now that, like, I've been thinking about this, why so many kids are avoiding now. Did our generation have also so many kids, but we were forced to and we were not allowed to express or speak up? Is it because we were raised in like authoritarian parenting? Our needs were not important. We were never heard or seen. Have we raised our children today with more conscious parenting and we value their opinions, their feelings, their needs, so they are more safer to express themselves? Does that play a role? Or are they addicted to their devices and it's so easy that they just want to stay home, eat snacks, and just be on their devices because that's how they sort of during COVID time, this is what happened. Like, what's going on? What are the factors? No one knows.
No one has the exact answers, but I know that what factors I see.
Okay.
I see factors, first of all, there's a generation of helicopter parents, and I think I was one as well.
Well, thank you for admitting it. Yeah, that's very brave.
Yeah, I wish I wasn't. And I always stepped in to solve the problems. And I think that there was a lot of that going on for kids coming up. They didn't learn problem solving on their own or resilience or to do things on their own, which was definitely a major flaw. I fixed things as my daughter, the second one, and knew how to do things better. Also, I think that there is a lot of this, comparing ourselves to each other, the generation of Facebook and how parents live vicariously through their children's accomplishments, the baseball teams, the awards, and the scholarships, and then what school you get into. And I think that's a lot of pressure on kids, a lot. And in addition, well, there's what's always been going on, schools are graded, in their top 100 list or whatever we have on the number of graduates they have that go on to college, and then the quality of the college. So then you get the total top down of what we want is we just want good grades and blah, 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 and not thinking anything social, emotional, or where other factors are coming into play. Those are some of the things. Obviously, the use of devices makes it more difficult. I think obviously devices hit each kid different depending on the child's circumstance and build and what they're like, because some kids really have that FOMO or they're comparing themselves, which makes everything worse and harder. I also think that because social media has opened up our world to so many different things, places, people, experiences, jobs, that kids are seeing the real world in front of them and they realize that their school is not the real world. Why are they learning this? How come they're not learning things that they enjoy? How come they're not able to choose the things that they are learning and get involved with instead of, things being shoved at them based on a curriculum that I don't know who started these curriculums and why we have them.
Yeah, these are very interesting points. I think, yeah, the stress and the pressure is significant. The high stakes testing, we know that's very serious factor. And perhaps we also see rise in ADHD and neurodivergence, right? Like that's also a thing. Like, are these connected? These two issues connected? Do they share common root causal factors? So the children who have this problem, are they typical kids, neurodivergent? Is there data on that?
Well, maybe there is data because I have heard people saying, a certain amount of neurodivergent kids have school avoidance. I don't know where that came from and I don't know who did it. So I don't know, but it might be there somewhere. But yes, a lot of kids who are neurodivergent have school avoidance. And well, it makes sense for kids who have autism spectrum disorder, because first of all, and ADHD, because those things are easy to miss in the classroom. And I think that a lot of kids have ADHD and it's never caught, or maybe now it is caught more because we know what we're looking for. And these kids feel like, why are they not getting it like their peers? Why don't they understand what the teacher is saying? Why can't they do that? It makes them feel like less than. What's wrong with me? And then the kids on the spectrum, obviously we have a large, wide gap of the spectrum itself, but kids with autism often, obviously, we know have issues with socialization and they mask a lot of their behaviors. It's so much effort and it's so hard for them to try to act as if they were the other kids when they don't see things or feel things differently.
Yeah, and learning is a relational experience, right? Like you want to trust your teacher and have a safe relationship and be valued and liked by your teacher. But I think large class sizes and teaching definitely is not a relational experience for a lot of children. And so I think that's missing too. And so, and some of the kids who have ADHD or neurodivergence, they feel that feeling unsafe, relational safety, they don't feel that sense of security, and maybe they cannot create themselves. They don't have the skills yet. And maybe some typical kids struggle, but it's not as pronounced, right? Because you do want that experience to be relational. Otherwise, learning cannot happen. I think that's also one of the problems because the emphasis is on academics, high stakes testing and numbers and data and achievement and goals, and like the human aspect of learning and relationality is missing completely.
Yeah, so you're totally correct. I mean, I agree with you. There is also, it's very interesting because when we think of school, we think of academic.
Hmm.
And with the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, which says that every kid, regardless of their disability, is should have a free, appropriate public education. That says that an education is defined as not only academics, but also all the other things that go into raising an independent child, a youth who can go on to high school, go on to a career that's independent, that can socialize. That is what an education is, really to have an independent person. And everyone looks at education as academics. And that is a lot of why a lot of kids with school avoidance are not granted individualized education plans or 504 plans because it's hard for schools to see it that way.
hmm And also, like, look what's happening, right? Recess has been removed and decreased significantly, which is so important for stress regulation and in general for the health and the well-being of the child. Movement, art, those kind of classes are decreased or removed completely, which is also very healthy, mental health promoting and boosting. My biggest complaint is computer-based learning. Screens have to be completely removed, I think, from schools if we want raise a generation that is mentally healthy, because screens are a big problem at home and in schools. So everything is screen based, and that has severe negative consequences.
Are you talking about all devices that are even like if they do?
That they do homework, they do learning, reading, everything is computer based. They don't write, they don't do anything with pen and paper and that is, I think, a contributing factor. Because if you're staring at the screen, which narrows your attention field to a human being, right? It signals to your brain that you're under stress. So if you widen your eyes and look at the horizon, that regulates your nervous system, that it's a de-stressor. So if we're constantly like this, you're automatically triggering this stress response that you're under stress, you're under stress, you're under stress. And then kids are also, it interrupts their sleep, right? It affects their sleep patterns. Kids also don't eat nutritious foods, ultra processed foods, convenience foods. Parents are busy and burnt out, we know. And so this surgence of easy, convenient, non-nutritious foods, it's all like this conglomerate of problems. I think it's all contributing to issues that we see rise and we're trying to find solutions, but it's not one factor. I feel like it's multifactorial. And yes, parents can do certain things and schools can do certain things. The society has to do certain things. Systemic changes have to happen. I mean, we can talk about this forever, but let's go back to, are there types of school refusal, school avoidance?
Well, there's a definition for acute school refusal
hmm
from Dr. Carney told me. Dr. Chris Carney is like the father of all research and clinical work with school avoidance. He created the four functions of school refusal and the school refusal assessment scale.
And is that scale available freely for people, or is it the paid resource? Uh-huh.
It is available free. We make it available on our website, but it is free. You can Google school refusal assessment scale, four functions of school avoidance, school refusal, and you can do it. It's an assessment that should be done by or given by a school professional or a mental health professional ultimately. But I do hear from a lot of parents who are just like, I want to figure this out on my own because no one else cares. And they ask for it or they download it. There is a parent version and a child version. And then those two scores are looked at together to find the function, the cause. So it's either something negative or something positive. So therefore, the first function is avoiding anything related to school that feels negative. And that could be things like tests. It could be the schoolroom, the cafeteria, the unstructured time. And then for function two, it's avoidance of social evaluative situations. And that is obviously things that involve socialization or presentations. And then the function three is attention seeking behavior, seeking positive rewards by being with a family or relative, which is usually separation anxiety. And then the fourth function is seeking positive rewards from tangible things like Xbox, sleeping, eating. So those are the four functions. And I do have to admit, I forgot what I was saying before I brought in Chris Carney into the conversation. What did you ask me?
Well, I said about the type. I said, are there different types?
Right. Okay. Right. So let me into. So yes, I don't think there are different types. So yes. So Dr. Carney said that anything under 6 months is acute school refusal. After is chronic. But they're both to me in the same vein, the same thing. It's just one's been going on longer. And there might be stages of it, stages of when you start missing a day here and a day there, and then start missing more on a systematic series. But otherwise, there is no differentiation of school refusal. Once you have been, we've said the definition of school refusal, the official definition is Berg's criteria that says school refusal happens when a student over a 2-week period misses more than 20% of school. There is no conduct disorder present. The parents are aware of where their child is and they are doing everything they can to get the child back to school. Those are some of the definitions, the clinical definitions.
More than 20%. So let's talk about how it affects the whole family, because it's not only a problem for the school, but it's a problem for the whole family. And recently I was invited to this school, and from what I heard, a group of professionals were blaming the parents for this problem.
Always.
Always parents are to be blamed, but they don't know the reality that these parents are dealing with every single day, dealing with this chronic issue. So could you describe perhaps from your experience or in general how it's like to live with this problem for the kid and for the family, for the parents?
Okay. So I will tell you what it's like for the parent, and then I want to tell you how the school's involved with that. And when we do professional development for schools, because that's part of our specialty, we include something very valuable that no one else tells them, the parent perspective. What is going on in the home? We try to get the educators to put themselves in the parent's shoes, which is very hard to do because it's hard to understand. What do you mean you can't get your kid to school? So we explain everything that the parent goes through. Once they hear this, it really does reframe things for the school. And I don't see how anyone can be trained on school avoidance without understanding the parent perspective, because a lot of the blame is put on the parent. So for a parent, for what happening is, first of all, your child is breaking down at home. We don't know what's going on oftentimes. We have no idea. And we are scared. We're scared for our child's mental health. We're scared that our child's going to fall behind in school. We're scared that our child's not going to have a life and end up living in our basement. And it's also hard because a lot of the times kids cannot articulate what is going on. They cannot. So it really is up to the parent to be the detective and the researcher to think, what are the underlying causes? It affects the family also because oftentimes, if there are two partners in the household, oftentimes they disagree. One is supposedly the lax one, and then the other one is like, pull him up by his bootstraps. Just get him to go. You're not hard enough. You're not strict enough. So that is happening concurrently. Also, there is such a shortage of mental health professionals out there. So where do we go for help? And then to make that even more difficult is there's even a smaller percentage of mental health professionals out there who specialize in cognitive behavioral therapy with exposure. And there are unfortunately a lot of therapists out there saying they do cognitive behavioral therapy. And when they say that, they might be only handling mindfulness and relaxation skills, which is one part of cognitive behavioral therapy. But they're not talking about the automatic negative thoughts that kids have in their head. And they're not doing exposure, which are first-line treatments for school avoidance and anxiety disorders. So a lot of the times, families and kids are having mental health treatment and they feel like something's wrong with them because they're not getting any better. That's a problem. Then you have the problem of compulsory education laws and the school. When kids start being absent from school, every school district has this in America, unless ones that have been really progressive and have stopped. But they send out letters after 3, 5, 7, 10 absences. Each school has their own parameter. And the letter says, Dear Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, we know that your child, did you know that your child's been out of school for blank number of days? Do you know that if there is a law called a compulsory education law, that if you can't get your child to school, then you might be subject to a $500 fine. You might have to go to jail. You will have to go to truancy court. And your child might lose their driving privileges one state actually has. So these letters, that's the first relationship with the school many times. Not every parent has been working with anyone in the school. So if that letter is their first interaction with the school, and I know with my feeling, I was like, I know my kid is not in school. And then I look back at my son's letters, and sometimes they sent them to me even when there were 20 and 30 absences, the dates. And I'm like, every time I get this letter, it's like a dagger in my heart. I know my kid is absent. I'm just struggling, and you keep blaming me and pressuring me when I don't have a solution, and you're not giving me any guidance besides telling me what I'm doing wrong. There's pressure, and then you might get phone calls, what's going on, what's wrong with your child, and the parent doesn't know it's school avoidance, that there's a thing. The school doesn't know there's something called school avoidance. So there's a total disconnect, and the family is the ultimate payer of the price because their child is suffering, the school is coming at them, they're being threatened by truancy laws, fines, they can't find the right mental health professionals. So who do they go to? That's the worst feeling, that they are on their own.
And you feel like a failure.
Yes, and your child does too.
Yeah. And the worst is what's wrong with me. And sometimes even parents say, what's wrong with you? Like you reach a point where you don't know that this is a problem, right? If you knew that this was a problem, it had a name, you would approach differently. But because you don't know, and the pressure from school comes with those threatening letters, I've definitely received those letters. After 10, I think you receive a letter. After 14, we'll take you to court. They never do. But these are fear tactics. These are punitive approaches. And these are antiquated approaches. Like the school has to update how they function in the modern world. This punitive approach to education, to child rearing, to the criminals, it doesn't work like that with humans. Fear, coercion, punishment, it just doesn't work. It makes things worse. It worsens. If they came with curiosity, if they came with an open mind and with a helpful attitude, let's figure this out. Even when they do come and say, let's figure this out, they dish out a punitive plan. They dish out detentions. And right, it's never a collaborative, let's work together to figure this out type of approach. It's always punitive.
Well, that's the biggest problem.
We'll take this away from you. You will be punished. You will not graduate. You will not go to this trip. You will this and this and this. Like that's going to worsen the situation for everyone.
That is the ultimate truth, and it happens everywhere. And it's frustrating that in this day and age, it's still happening. And we hear about, restorative practices. And so why aren't we using those practices for chronic absenteeism? It's really a problem within the schools that they don't look inside themselves and look like, what are we doing wrong? What can we be doing differently? So when we educate school districts, again, that's part of our mission in life, we educate families and then we educate schools. And I don't see how a school district can help these kids without our training. So when we come into schools and we train them it's a comprehensive education on school avoidance. We give them the parent perspective, first line treatments, special education law, which comes into play. We give them a framework. We tell them about CBT and exposure, all these things that they've never heard of. If they're educated on school avoidance, and we've done customer surveys and I've done interviews, and one of the things the school person who hired us will always say, it reframed school avoidance in everyone's mind. We now see the child differently. We see the parent differently. And I've had assistant principals call me who said they were forced to take the training. They didn't want to, but they thank me because they often deal with the attendance behavioral, which isn't the same, but they consider it the same. And he said, I was never able to get anywhere with the parents, but now that I understood school avoidance from their perspective, I know that our team's been trained on it, and I have the confidence that we can work collaboratively and help this child back to school. It changed everything. Then the parents like, oh, relief, they get it. They're on my side. Okay, now I can tell you what's really going on in my home.
Yeah. So what happens when you educate them? Like, what's the before and after? Like, do they change their policies? What changes happen? I'm so curious.
Yes, so it all depends on the school and what they do after the training and how much buy-in they have from their rest of their colleagues. Because ultimately, well, let's just take one school, for instance. The frontline staff are the ones that need to be educated on school avoidance because if you think about it, these are the touch points of the people who'll be working with that child or family from the beginning stages to getting them back into the classroom. So those are obviously the school counselor, the social workers, the school psychologist, the assistant principals, and the principals also because they are involved with making policy. They're the ones who can say, hey, let's change that attendance letter. So yes, they need to be there too. Any multi-tiered systems of support people and interventionists, school nurses, and truancy people, they all need to be educated. What's happening right now is that oftentimes we hear from the school social worker first because it is it's not identified until it becomes a real problem or a crisis, and then it's just thrown to the social worker. You deal with this. But the social worker has no help from the principal, the counselor. So the ultimate is for when the school trains their frontline staff, which is not easy to get them to do. When our schools do that, and there's someone who's in charge of it, who brought us in and wants to see change, then it happens. They do change, they put procedures and policies into place. They will make tier one changes in terms of how those letters go out, what they say in the meetings with parents. They will figure out how to get the team involved to help this child and when to get the social worker involved, when to get the school psychologist involved, when to do an evaluation, what to look for. A lot of the kids have 504 plans or IEPs that might have been given to them, but don't address anything related to the school avoidance or are not even helping them with their learning issue or their mental health issue. So that happens a lot. And then there are obviously a lot of undiagnosed learning differences or mental health issues because it's so hard to catch this in large school systems. Usually it's the parent who brings it to the school first. There is a law called child find within IDEA that every educator, it's incumbent on them if they see any problem within a child that they should be telling the parent and report it, but it just doesn't happen because things are easily missed, especially these obedient good kids who might be the school refusing kids. Eventually they fall through the cracks because they're not making a big hoopla, they've not done anything difficult, so they are being missed.
So what's the difference between truancy and school avoidance?
Yes, good question. So truancy is when a child, a student, is ditching school for a tangible reason or a reason where they don't want to be in school and their parents don't know about it, maybe. Maybe the school doesn't know about it, and it's not driven by an emotional mental health issue or driven by a learning difference. And school avoidance is when there is emotional distress. There is a great fear that paralyzes the kids and is uncontrollable, where kids who are truant don't have that. But when I talk to schools, my slides, when I first got them and I first built them, they came from research. And it would say, well, kids with truancy have They're stereotypical, what's the word? I can't even say it, but means they're doing something on the side, but has the connotation of it's bad. They're doing bad things. So I took that out of my presentations because these kids need help too. They need help because they are ditching school for a reason as well. What are they not getting? And oftentimes it's the school itself. And this is also an interesting thing that I must, when we present and talk to schools, are yeah, school avoidance is caused by oftentimes mental health issues, learning differences. But how about the school related factors? They're often co occurring. It's not one without the other. And the whole thing with the blame game on the parent is so old school and ridiculous. And I do hear it often. Actually, we get our leads from schools who say, we're interested in learning about your professional development. And we say, well, why? What help do you need? What's your biggest problem? Parents don't understand. Parents aren't helping us. They don't get it. Parents don't value education. So there's a huge disconnect between the parent and the child, and the truancy label and school avoidance being unrecognized as a label. So everything is being missed. The truancy label is just so ridiculous. And, some states and school districts are more punitive than what you said, that the schools that you know of don't do anything. Schools do bring their family and child to truancy court, and they unenroll kids in some states. So if they're absent for, everyone has a different threshold for say 10, 15, 20 days, they will unenroll the child because then they are not considered on their enrollment rolls. So the school is not penalized for not having someone in the seat, because schools are funded by average daily attendance. So every child in that seat is revenue that the school gets. So they will lose for the school to use for funding every time a kid is not in school and drops out. So they get the kid off the rolls. So you imagine the attendance letter that you saw that you get with 20 absences, and it feels so horrible. I have parents who send me those "you've been unenrolled" letters. Wow, how heartless is it? We've unenrolled your child. They've been absent for 10 times, 20 times. If you seek to re-enroll your child, or get help, speak to so-and-so to re-enroll your child. Why the heck are you unenrolling the child? What have you done to help me? Nothing. So it's really, the system is barbaric. And I do have to say that I think that the curriculum also, the structure of the school day needs to be changed. Why are we not letting the kids explore things that they enjoy? Why are we not giving them a sense of agency to choose between this or that? Those are protective factors that the research shows that kids need to feel a sense of agency. They want to do things that they enjoy. And also, obviously, they want to have relationships where they feel safe and valued by their educators or the adults in the building. So those are the things that are being missed.
Yes, I mean, like, think about it. If I were to offer you a drink that smells disgusting, looks disgusting, and I would say, you got to drink this, Jayne, you got to drink this, you would refuse it for good reasons. Like, why would anyone refuse something that is good for them? Right? Like, we also want to look at the schools. If it was this nurturing, loving, relational learning space, like, why would anyone refuse to go to school, to be with their friends, to be in a nice environment, to explore arts and music and dance and photography and have ample time to socialize with kids? Kids don't have time in between classes, that they feel pressured to go from one classroom to the other. They have 3 minutes in between classes. First of all, let's talk about something. Homework.
Homework. Oh my God.
Homework. So they go to school. First of all, school starts in middle school and high school in my state at 7:40. Why aren't we starting late? Because all the child development and teen brain development indicates that teenagers need more sleep. They go to bed late. They wake up late. Why are we not changing the late start time? Number one. Why are they spending so many hours in school from 7:30 to 3 p.m.? Why? That's a big, long period. What are they doing during that whole time? Under pressure, high stakes testing, and no art, no movement, no free time, no socialization. And plus, then there is homework. When they come after 8 long hours, they didn't get enough sleep, they didn't eat anything. In some schools, you can't even go to the bathroom because there is security. I hear all sorts of stories. So when you come home, now you have to do homework. And some kids stay up late because they want to do well. I know high school kids, 12 a.m., 1 a.m., 2, 3 a.m. So they don't get the sleep that they need. Why are they doing homework? Let's remove homework from schools. Research indicates that this is completely useless. Like, that's what schools can do to make it more appealing and interesting. Homework creates so much stress and anxiety and problems for families and kids.
I don't
Why?
get it either. I hate homework. I mean, that's where my kids' problems started. I hate how it takes away the childhood. It takes away the family time together. And the educators themselves, they don't want to grade homework. How about the extra burden on them? And it makes no sense. I don't know why it's still happening. I think maybe they think it's going to prove that, these kids have grasped this level of education, and kids who are not, how do we get them up to speed? So we can show everyone that our school graduates so many kids into four-year colleges. That homework thing, if I didn't was involved with school avoidance, I would have fought homework.
I think it should be part of it. Like, this should be part of it. If we want children, I think one of the 10, like, I made a plan the other day in order to solve school refusal. I proposed a few things. And I believe, first of all, I'm new to this topic, right? As I said in the beginning, as much as I know, which is not that much. But I think schools bear more responsibility in changing and influencing this issue than the parents.
Yes, that's true.
In my humble opinion, if schools could remove homework, start late, the schools, and implement more recess and healthy eating options and no computer-based learning and all those good things that we already spoken about, that will diminish this problem significantly. Yes, the problem will still exist. And they also have to change their tactics, how they handle those threatening letters, their punitive approach, or, that also needs to change. So schools bear more responsibility in solving this issue than the poor parent. The poor parent cannot do anything. It creates conflict between the home with the child, like you said, if they're partnered among the partners, because you can get your child to school, then you get it. And so it becomes a big issue. It becomes a big issue for the whole family. It colors their day, their experience. And the child feels like a failure. They're like, what's wrong with me? I am broken. I'm damaged. Parent feels like a failure. And they are stuck and alone and isolated. But they're not alone. This is a big issue, right? There are, in my school district, the graduating seniors. I was just at the school meeting. They reported that 1/3 of the high school students have this issue. 1/3.
Who told you that?
My school district.
They told you that 1/3 of your students have school refusal?
Yes, they have seat time, what's called seat time in our community. If you miss certain hours, right? If you're tardy, if you're absent, then you have to do detention or do certain things to make up your seat time. And 1/3 of children of this graduating year has that problem. They have seat time.
Time. Okay. So then we're saying that those are kids with school avoidance.
Yeah, I am saying that. Why would you have seat time problem? If you are in school, you wouldn't have that problem. Clearly, they're not showing up to school. That's why they accumulated seat time.
I would ask them, do they see the relationship like you do? Because they might not. They're not looking at it like you are.
No, they are not looking at this. They don't even mention the school avoidance refusal thing. That's why I'm speaking with you. I'm going to team up with you. We are going to do some good things. I am so excited and passionate
I live in
about
New
this.
Jersey too. We can go to New Jersey in Trenton and start speaking to some senators. And
We have to because I am fed up with this problem. And I think everything being blaming the parent is not the right solution. It's not. It's a big issue. So what are the like are there any official numbers? I think if there wouldn't be because if they're not recognizing that this is a problem, they're not naming the problem, how can we get accurate data?
right. So thank you for that. Because I'm always asked what the prevalence is. And there was, I do have research that pre-COVID said 2 to 5%. And then post-COVID went to 7%. And then we have a number that says 5 to 25% of kids over their school age life.
Uh-huh.
So luckily I do know the researchers who do this. And the last time I spoke to my friend who was a leading researcher, I think he told me like 7% now. But again, the data is flawed. And some of the data is from other countries because this is a worldwide problem. The data is flawed because schools don't have an attendance reason, an absenteeism reason for school avoidance, let alone behavioral health. I think some schools are trying to put that in. That is behavioral health, emotional, mental health issue, but they can't even name school avoidance. So how would they even put it in their attendance reasons? So the data is, I just go off in terms of what I see, the number of schools I hear from, the number of parents I hear from, the stories that it's a growing crisis because we start hearing from schools more and more as the years go on. After COVID, I'm like, oh my God, we're going to be hearing so many schools. We did at the beginning, and schools had ESSER funds, elementary, secondary education funds after COVID to help with that. But then it died off. They weren't they thought they knew it all, and they don't know school avoidance. So they're trying to do things like pizza parties, like rewarding kids for pizza parties, or punitive things, taking away their time to go to a school dance or an extracurricular. But there are a ton of kids suffering. We're starting to hear from schools who reached out to us 2 or 3 years ago that didn't want to do anything. And now we're saying, well, okay, we just realized we're not doing it right. We need help with school avoidance. So it's slowly happening, but not fast enough. And what's really frustrating is that I have gone to conferences. I spoke at a large school mental health conference. I don't want to name it. And there were, I don't know, 5 days of presentations on every hour. I was the only one that spoke about school refusal, school avoidance. And then the one person who I sat in on a presentation for, who talked about how they're addressing chronic absenteeism, was very proud of their department that handles it. Now, in California, they have something called the Student Attendance Review Board, SARB, and it's set up like a courtroom. Now, the schools don't mean it to be punitive. They're trying to solve it by speaking to the parent, the child, the educators, the administrators in this one room. So when the person put this up on their slide of that attendance review board and was bragging about it, I think they showed a video of the people talking. Immediately I tuned out and said, this is set up like a courtroom. How come no one else sees that? I should have spoken up. I was in a room with like 200 people. Usually I would because I'm pretty outspoken. But I was frustrated, really frustrated.
It was shocking for you. I guess sometimes things hit us like that. It comes as a shock and you're speechless. It's hard to process fast enough to have a response. I definitely can understand that. So, but since it's tied to mental health, I mean, why isn't it part of the conversation? Especially after what surprises me, especially after COVID, especially schools pretended that COVID came and went and didn't have any impact on anything. And that is that unrecognized effects of COVID time education created so much mental health issues that are not being addressed even now. I feel like I see this big link with COVID-19. It definitely, I am sure some scientists are studying it somewhere in some university, but it's not widespread. We don't know. I've interviewed several people on the podcast on this. And maybe I should go back. It was during COVID, they were doing the studies. I should invite that person back. And yeah, that researcher, I should invite her back. I should invite her back because I am also curious. But pretending that it didn't happen, we went back to normal, but it's like an earthquake. It has aftershocks. And aftershocks are very costly for the youth, mental health.
It's very frustrating.
And this is one manifestation. The school avoidance is one manifestation. It's a red flag for something else.
Yeah, it's very, very frustrating and aggravating to me, this whole thing with mental health. And schools say, oh, they have this, SEL team, but the SEL team is not speaking to the social workers or the school psychologist or the counselor or the principal, or certainly not involved with attendance. And there's no connection between it all. Also, before I really got into school avoidance, I was really a proponent of mental health education in schools. Why are we not?
We are so aligned. This is why I really appreciate everything you're saying.
Thank you.
Yes.
So my town my county started the mental health stigma-free movement. So I represented my town and I got us officially named by the council, you are stigma-free, right? But so I started learning, once I was involved with the county and all of these resources, I took mental health first aid, and it was helpful. It was great for, a layman, but it was just a tip of the iceberg. So when I speak to schools, again, I do ask them if they have mental health education, if I have the time. They'll say, oh, yeah, we've done mental health first aid. Okay, I don't want to put down mental health first aid because it's free and it's helpful. But why are we not teaching kids about the spectrum of mental health disorders? And cognitive behavioral itself is a wonderful science because it teaches kids about their automatic negative thoughts, that their perceptions and what they think are not always reality. Why are we not teaching this? I mean, we would all have a much healthier head. I would have had that. I have ants, automatic negative thoughts all the time. And then for kids to know be able to identify in them, oh, I feel like that. I feel like that. So if I remember correctly, there was a law passed in New York State that they had to put in mental health education in the schools. I don't know what happened with that. I don't know if that's happening. I would love to know because that is something that is needed.
For sure. Yeah, I agree. And it's best taught in schools because, again, is it the parents' responsibility? But if it's done in a class setting, if we're talking about anxiety and everybody shares, kids feel less stigmatized, less alone, less isolated. Because I remember, this is a long story about my life, but I'll shorten it for you. After the earthquake, I don't know how much you know about my background, but in Armenia, after the earthquake, so I was a student. And so what happened was they brought in experts. Humanitarian people came from different countries and were supportive. But one of the things that was sort of mandatory for everyone, because everybody was suffering and struggling, children lost their parents, everybody was in this big crisis, they were group therapy. I guess I can call it now group therapy, but it wasn't like severe therapy, strict therapy. We were a group of kids sitting in a circle. There was the leader, the coach. We would talk about things, process together, and we became more resilient and we processed things because we were all going through the same thing. And that experience left a big mark on me. When I worked in schools, I was an educator for a gifted school in Armenia. I recreated that experience because it was so powerful for me as a kid and so transformative and healing. I recreated it in the school district, and they were very open. It was a progressive school. It was for gifted and talented kids. They were very smart. And so I implemented this peer program led by me or by a facilitator, and it was phenomenal. I mean, kids need other kids, to talk about anxiety and mental health and their struggles. They're not going to share with, and it's a lot harder with the therapist. It's a lot harder with the parent. And plus, parent doesn't have to be everything for that kid. Why can't the schools provide that? It would be so wonderful.
Right. Well, I think that schools do want to do groups for their students, peer groups, and some of them do them. For school refusal, though, I think that is hard to do because there's so much shame and stigma around it. I don't know how, if a kid doesn't want to go to school, I don't know how you can.
No, I was talking more about the mental health.
All right, mental health. Yes,
So
yes.
it's mental health. No, the school refusal, I think, yes, it's a standalone problem. Do you think it's a standalone problem or is it a byproduct of something else?
The school refusal?
Yes, or both, or
School refusal is a symptom of something else. There's no DSM diagnosis.
yes.
So it is a symptom, say, for an anxiety disorders, for
Mm-hmm.
ADD, for trauma. So it is a symptom. That's also part of the problem, that it's not a diagnostic thing. It doesn't have a diagnostic code.
So that's why I'm saying if the schools implemented mental health classes or peer groups or however it looks like, this may be
Of
preventative
course.
for school refusal. Instead, they want to address the school refusal the old fashioned way with those letters and court and de-enrollment and stuff like that. That is not working clearly. Well, I don't want to take too much of your time. I know we spoke, over an hour. I promise I will be in touch. I will speak with you again. This was phenomenal.
That's so nice. So for parents, we have the School Avoidance Masterclass, and these are leading experts from Columbia University, UCLA. And this is a course that contains everything I wish I knew when I was going through school avoidance. And because parents don't know that it has a name, or there's very limited information online about school avoidance when it's really a crisis and an issue. We're told the same things, pack the backpack the night before, let's do some sleep hygiene, but no one's addressing the real crisis in the home at all. So that's why they're desperate and so happy to get this course. When parents buy our School Avoidance Masterclass, we give them a free peer-to-peer support group. So bi-weekly, we do a parent peer support group, and I can tell you, we've been doing it for 3 years right now, how grateful these parents are. They often say, this saved my life. This was better than any professional I spoke with. This is how I get by. This is what I look forward to. And it really is wonderful. So I just want parents to know about that. And then we also educate schools. So schools really need to be educated on school avoidance. There is no way that they are going to be able to improve all their attendance problems without it. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, agreed, agreed. And how about the child? What is the child's responsibility?
Oh, I forgot to mention I have a book.
Oh, please mention it.
I forgot to mention that I'm an author. So I was asked by a publisher to write a book on school avoidance. So I was thrilled. So it's called Overcoming School Avoidance, What to Do When Your Kid Won't Go to School. And this is a comprehensive book based on what I've learned from myself, from the thousands of parents I've spoken to, and the thousands of educators I've spoken to. And we also include special education law. So it gives parents every piece of the puzzle they need to help their child, because we know there are so many factors interrelated to this. So I think it's the best book out there for school avoidance because it gives you the comprehensive view on what you need to do, and it gives you hope because we have 25 parents who tell us how they got their kids back to school. So parents need hope. I want them to know that kids get back to school all the time. And the most important thing is to educate yourself, empower yourself with information.
Thank you so much, Jayne. This was so amazing. I feel a genuine connection. I admire what you do. I get your passion. I share your passion. I hope we can collaborate. I want to support your work. I want to get involved in this advocacy because it seems like this is an important issue. And I think we'll speak again.
Oh, that's great. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thanks for asking me really good questions I don't always get that were system problems, because I really feel that the problem is the system with the problems with not enough therapists, not enough information for parents, and the school system itself and the silos within the school.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
That concludes today's conversation, my dear listener, and I hope you found this episode helpful and inspiring. Be sure to hit that follow button so you don't miss future episodes, and take a moment to leave a rating and review. It really helps others find the show. I would love to hear your thoughts and takeaways. Join the conversation in the Authentic Parenting Facebook group or visit the contact page at authenticparenting.com/contact to get in touch. Authentic Parenting is an ad-free show, and your donations is what makes this podcast possible. Support the show by visiting authenticparenting.com/support or becoming a patron at patreon.com. Your contributions make it possible for me to continue bringing you weekly episodes. And as always, connect to the present moment, to yourself and your children. Until next week, I am Anna Seawold. Thank you so much for listening. This episode was edited and produced by Ami Noor. If you need expert support to bring your dream podcast to life, from editing to full production, Ami Noor can help make it happen. You'll find his link in the show notes.